Hello, you're listening to the Hello Weights podcast, the home of heavy weights and heavy music. This week, we don't have a guest. We've had a guest the last three episodes running. I've had some really great guests on. It's been really good. I feel like we have fulfilled the music quota side well. Eventually, I probably would like to interview some athletes, particularly strength athletes or endurance athletes, on their training, but also on music generally. And maybe we'll find a bit of balance in that. Maybe we'll find that we're really similar. Maybe we'll find that we're not that different after all when it comes to our approach to things like strength training, to diet, and to fitness overall, as well as maybe tastes in music. Who knows? And certainly there's a broad variety of different tastes out there, and a broad church to draw from if gym playlists are anything to go by. So, what are we going to do this week? If we're not interviewing anyone? Well, this week we're back to the regular format. So I'm going to talk about a few different things. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is weight loss or fat loss. Fat loss is a better term, right? Because weight loss can be a negative thing when you are trying to gain mass or preserve lean mass, right? So if you're trying to hold on to muscle and you lose a load of weight, that is the number on the scale goes down, but you don't look any better, you're puffy, and your clothes don't fit any better, and you're not as strong as you used to be. That's not good weight loss for you, right? Because if you're trying to preserve that, then that's negative for you if that isn't preserved. So fat loss is generally considered to be the correct term for it, and the reason that fat loss is so important in 2019 is that we are not constantly under threat of starvation. Not in the West, anyway. Certainly not in developed nations. We're very rarely under the threat of starving to death, or malnutrition or things like that. Of course, there is poverty in the UK. There is poverty throughout Europe, and obviously that's not something I want to overlook. But for most people, certainly the people who would be in a position to focus on health and fitness in the way that we do, fat loss is the name of the game, because it's quite easy when we have open, regular access to food. And what I mean by that is that we've got these massive industrialized food production industries, right? So we've got factory farms just churning out eggs. We've got factory farms churning out meat. We're not hunting our prey, and therefore the total amount of calories we expend to get calories, the ratio has just completely changed. Whereas if you were to go back to pre-civilization, obviously there was a much closer relationship between the intake of calories and the expenditure. So what does that mean? Particularly in the last 20, 30 years, with the decline of physical activity as required for work, and also with the increase of high-calorie, low-cost foods, and I'm including everyone in that. That's not just your McDonald's and Burger Kings of the world. There are lots of examples of that, right? So snack foods generally are readily available. We found cheap ways to make sugar, and therefore we could put more sugar in things. And I'm sure you've seen the documentaries, etc., about why obesity is a problem now, but it wasn't really a problem in the sort of 60s and 70s. It's quite a recent change. So what does that mean for us? It means that it's really easy to put weight on. which can be good, and it can also be very, very bad. So what I mean by it can be good is that if there's a regular access to high quality, protein and calories, then great. There's a good way for you to put on mass if that's something you want to do. What's the downside? The downside is that it's really easy to get fat, and even it could be particularly difficult because if you put on weight like fat mass when you were a child, it is much, much, much more likely that you're going to be an obese adult. So in a period of time when you are not particularly well experienced to like the long-term effects of things. You remember being a kid, right? You would eat, chocolate until you felt sick, and you would play video games all day until you felt tired, and it's just a series of like poor decisions because you're young, you're inexperienced. Also, your body can sort of take it because it's in that period of insane growth, but also you are not making the sensible decisions for your health at age 12 that you are at age 32. So what that means is that you're particularly susceptible to obesity because you are more likely to do things that make you just feel good immediately, which is those short-term reward things, and snack foods certainly fulfill that criteria, and inactivity as well. So if you can get, extreme excitement from inactivity and things like video games and television and things like that. I don't want to demonize those. They have their place. But if you are replacing activity with those sedentary activities, then you're increasing your risk. And what it means is that as adults, we, particularly myself, but a lot of you as well, will have to work harder to reduce that fat mass than people who had never been through that as children. So that's like the history of why it is particularly focused on now, and why it's a big deal. So what can we do about it? We can reduce calorie intake, and that will require the body to burn its stored energy, which generally is fat, to make up the difference, if you like, and that will reduce your overall body fat. However, I don't want to make it feel as simple as calories in, calories out, because that certainly isn't the case. If that was the case, we would all realise we're getting a bit fat, go on a diet, and then be thin forever, right? Because that's how it works, but it's not. So there's lots of subtle complexity. There certainly is an argument to say that we don't understand it scientifically as well as we'd like, and that's just because the human body is particularly complex, but also there is no single model for the human body. There are thousands of different varieties of in our DNA and things like that make our bodies behave differently. So you may have a friend who can seemingly eat 3,000, 4,000 calories a day and stay skinny. That's a well-known trope. You may have a friend who is repeatedly dieting and then binging and all that sort of stuff. But those bodies behave differently. So some people will gain mass very easily, some people won't. You see the same in weightlifting. There are people who can lift and lift and lift and lift, and they will put on a little bit of muscle. And they might get a bit tighter. There's a sort of hard gainer. We've spoken to a few of those in interviews in the past couple of episodes rather. There are also people who are on the other end of that spectrum who just gain really easily. So they can work out 2 days a week, and go hard, and then just put on these incredible looking muscles because they are just built in such a way genetically that is susceptible to muscle gain. And, there's people who are in between all of those different variables as well. So when we're analysing how the body responds to diet and to exercise, it's particularly complex because you are somewhere in between all of these radical ends of every spectrum. So your cardio might be, you might respond really well to cardio exercise in terms of gaining, increased oxygen saturation in your blood, or putting on fitness better, or you might adapt faster to running and things like that, or you might be terrible. Cardio might be the thing that is absolutely terrible for you. You could run 5 kilometers every other day and rarely make any improvements in your overall fitness. So everyone is on somewhere between that incredible high performance and low performance spectrum, across multiple variables like strength training, cardio, fat retention, fat loss, muscle gain, all of those different things. And because of that, it's very, very difficult for one model to fit you personally. That's why there isn't a general guideline that is, everyone should do this and then they would all be okay, because it doesn't work like that. So what does that mean for you? It means you're going to have to try multiple things. It means that dieting is a key part of the process, maybe the most important part, but it's not the only part, and there are lots of different variables to consider. Also, the rate of return on a diet diminishes over time. So if you start a diet and a calorie cut now and you continue to lose body fat through that, the body adapts really well. It's what you're doing when you're weightlifting, right? So you're getting stronger as a response to that stimulus. Well, when you're dieting, what you're stimulating in your body is that there are lean times ahead. We are not... we're not going to have as much access to as much food as we'd like in the future, and therefore, what does that mean for us? It means that the body has to adapt, and the body adapts in a number of different ways over time. So eventually, your body will start to switch off, or at least ramp down, non-essential systems in order to keep the essential systems running. So it ramps down. Some of the first things you'll notice are like temperature regulation is one that tends to go for me fairly quickly. So I am not a person who generally gets cold, really, ever. Like I'm generally all right in most weathers, and often I'm too hot. And my body does, just thermoregulate through calories really well. But when I am dieting, if I'm in a couple of weeks into a sort of fat loss diet, I can really feel the cold, and that's my body turning down that thermoregulation aspect of it. There's lots of other things that will happen. You may feel more tired. Your body won't be recovering as quickly from different stimuli, so you won't be able to weight train like you're bulking, because your muscles just won't recover in time in a cut. So you might have to adjust your training in that respect. What does that mean? That means that in order to, I guess, hack the body in the way that we're trying to do, which is to reduce fat and put on lean mass. The body doesn't want to do that. The body wants to store lots of fat because that's a survival mechanism. But in order to hack the body into losing fat in a time that it thinks is a lean time, what you need to do is adjust the way that you diet. So generally, that means time limiting your diet. And then after a period on that diet, when you've lost a bit of body fat, that means recalculating your intake, generally your macros and your calories, and then sitting at maintenance for a while. So trying not to lose any more weight for a couple of weeks, couple of months, and then the body gets to switching those systems back on because it thinks it's got enough food. And then you go on another diet. So that series, you'll see it in bodybuilding actually, the series of bulks and cuts have that sort of effect. Now the way they were thinking of it was that they were trying to gain lean mass in a period of bulking. So obviously if you're in a calorie surplus, that's when you're going to put on muscle. But then also you put on a percentage of fat in a surplus. So you need to shave that fat off. And then what they were thinking is, I can diet that off faster than I can lose the muscle. So, but what they were actually doing, probably unbeknownst to most of the bodybuilders at that time, is they were actually recalibrating their body each time by going, okay, here's a load of food. The lean times are gone. You don't need to, do all the stuff you need to do to hold on to calories. And then they would hit another cut, in the off season, in the on season when they were competing, they would hit another cut. Their body would suddenly be forced to adapt, and they would then lose body fat. So if you are out there and you're trying to lose body fat, it's more complex than just picking a calorie cut and going for it. You need to accept that there is a limited amount of time that you can diet for, which will be effective, and then you need to factor that into your overall goals. So why am I talking to you about this? Well, I'm talking to you about this because I have begun a body weight cut, or body fat cut. I reached my strength goals for the year, which I'm really pleased about. I dramatically exceeded some of them, which I'm really pleased about as well. So my overhead press got to 100 kilograms, which is really good. That's what I was trying to go to. That was the hardest one for me. It's not gone beyond 100, and I would imagine in this period of cutting, it would actually decline from 100 a little bit. I'll lose a bit of that strength, and then I'll have to get it back when I'm eating fully again. I got the 200 kilogram deadlift multiple times, to make sure that I could absolutely do it each time. Really pleased with that. My squat, which I was hoping to get to 150, last week I did a 180 kilogram body back squat. So I'm really pleased with that. That's amazing. I didn't expect to get to 180, but just putting the work in, and I have plenty of off days, but putting the work in with the squats really, really has helped. Now my program's slightly changed because I've got to continue stimulating muscle through this cutting period, which is hard because you're going to be tired and you're not going to recover as quickly. But what does that mean for me? It means that if I don't stimulate the muscle, if I don't show up and lift weights and move around and do all that sort of stuff and get a sweat on, my body will begin to think that it doesn't need that muscle and will start to cannibalize it, basically, for the missing calories. And what that means for me is that, one, I won't lose body fat at the rate that I was hoping to lose body fat, but also I'm going to lose lean muscle, and all that work I put in earlier in the year is going to go to waste. So I need to keep stimulating the muscle so the body thinks it can't afford to lose it. If I can do that, then obviously that's going to be really good. So what does that mean overall for me? It means that my program has changed slightly. The most important thing for my program at the moment is that I show up. Just showing up and doing the lifts, even if they're not progressing in the way that they would if I wasn't cutting. Just showing up is an important part of just slicing more calories off and, doing some challenging body work. So it does mean that I can do some more interesting, exciting things, because if I have to hit the arms in a different way, or the back in a different way, or the legs in a different way, than just squatting and deadlifting every single session, what that means for me is that I can do more interesting things. So I can hit the triceps and the shoulders with some dips. I can hit the back with some GHRs. I can hit the back with some rows and things like that. So I can keep doing interesting stuff. Also, when with relation to maximal work, I would normally do like 3 to 5 sets of 5 reps at the work set. And that would mean that I'm doing loads of volume. I'm getting loads of volume out of that, even though it's really high intensity. In a cut, that is problematic because loads and loads of volume is going to create loads and loads of muscle wear, and then you're going to have to repair that muscle wear somehow, and you don't have the calories to do it. So in order to make sure that I'm still challenging the body in some way, but also not creating enormous amounts of tears, I'm happy maintaining this strength rather than boosting it in a cut. I'm trying to do some maximal work, but with lower volume. So what that might be is triples and doubles and maybe even some heavy singles at the really, really high weights for the compound exercises. One, to make sure I can still do it. That's an important thing. So you're testing your strength every week, which means that you are more aware if you're beginning to tail off. And 2, that it just provides the stimulus, the extreme stimulus. So you know that you're continuing to challenge those muscle groups through a cut. So I'm about 1 week in. It's going okay. The diet is probably the harder part of it. It always has been for me. At the moment, I'm just making sure that I eat enough food. I'm trying to make sure that I eat a lot of protein. So you want to eat a lot of protein to hold on to lean mass, because if you don't eat a lot of protein, basically protein is the repairing tool for muscles. So if you don't supply those repair tools to the muscle, it finds them elsewhere, and the place that it finds them is by cannibalizing healthy lean tissue. So you basically at that point burn muscle to repair muscle, and what that means is that you don't grow and you shrink actually. So protein is number 1. Carbohydrates are fairly important. There's a lot of low carb diets and things like that out there. I'm not completely sold on them. I've done low carb diets in the past. I've done keto in the past even, and I find that if I really drastically reduce carbs to the point where I'm on a low carb diet, then I'm so tired all the time. And actually, you don't want to drop too many calories too fast. A cut of 500 below maintenance is pretty aggressive actually. So especially when you're exercising as well. So the last thing that's really important is to just try and eat all of your calories. Like, I know you're dieting, and the temptation is, I'll get there quicker. I'll eat 1,000 less instead of 500 less today. And the difficulty with that is that it can really sabotage your progress. So I'm making sure that I eat my calories, particularly with a protein focus at the moment, and that's helping. I'm also doing more cardio than I would have done in a strength training phase. And that's steady state cardio. So I'm not really pulling on the different energy systems of the body. So I'm just mainly forcing my body to burn fat in order to power these cardio sessions. And they're just shaving more body fat off. And I say cardio, and that tends to evoke like memories of like Arnie on a rowing machine and people running on treadmills and things like that. They're not really often that sort of cardio. Often it can be a walk in the countryside or a bit of cycling, even just taking the dog out for a period of time. The most important thing is that heart rate is up and that it lasts, 10, 20 minutes or more. At the weekends, you can get a good hour of steady state cardio in, and it just slashes away the calories and just makes you, makes you hit that goal even faster without sabotaging your progress, which is really cool. When am I going to be back strength training? I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to really slim down with the body fat. So in the bulking stuff that I was doing earlier this year to put on all that strength, I did put on body fat as well as muscle mass. Most of it was muscle mass, I'm pleased to say, but I did put on a bit of body fat, and that's got to go. So I'll be doing that, and then once I'm slimmer, it's bulking time again. Hopefully I'll be ready in time for spring. Spring 2020 will be a big bulking phase. That'd be really cool, because it's obviously a great time to be, eating a load of stuff and lifting heavy weights. And then, by 2020 summer, I'm hoping I will be very, very strong and also looking incredibly jacked, which will be cool. So that's the plan. Obviously, if you're a member, there's a lot of people in the Hello Weights community on Facebook that are looking to generally feel better, but also to lose body fat and to feel a bit lighter on their feet. Which is great. That's certainly possible. So you guys can, if you want to join that Hello Weights community on Facebook, you can. There's a really supportive community there of people. So that'd be really, really cool to see you there. Talk about your program, talk about your problems, and we'll support you. We will help you through it. We'll help each other through it. And if you're losing body fat too, let us know, because generally speaking, these things are easier to do in groups. That's why things like Weight Watchers and other weight loss companies that have group meetings, that's why they're relatively successful. It's because there is a dynamic that when you're not doing this on your own, it's easier to do. So yeah, if you're losing body fat, come let us know. We're heading into winter. Winter is the difficult period, right? Because there's a few reasons. So for this part of the world and America and a few other places throughout Europe, it's the Christmas season or the holiday season if you're American, because you're going to have Thanksgiving as well. And what that means for you is that there is going to be an exceptional amount of temptation and an exceptional desire to eat all of those holiday foods, because bundled up with the Yorkshire puddings and the pumpkin pies and the Tinner celebrations is lots and lots of emotions and memories and nostalgia and the feeling that if you don't do those things that you are missing out somehow or failing somehow to adequately get into the spirit. And there's a really big sort of capitalist drive, because obviously this is where so many businesses make so much money that almost all of their resources go into promoting that really, really hedonistic behavior in the population. And what effect that has is that you've probably even noticed this yourself, right? So all of the adverts are, go on, you've earned it, it's Christmas, go on. And then the moment that Christmas is over and it hits January, it's, you fat fuck! It's time to diet, you horrible cunt. It's time for you to go to the gym and get your disgusting body in shape. How dare you? And all of that is a cycle that is designed to make money for people who sell products that can help you lose weight, or that sell food, or sell snack products. And you don't need to be a part of it. That's something that's worth saying. You just don't need to be a part of it. You can opt out of that particular brand of bullshit, and you can choose to have a healthy winter. You can choose to not do the Christmas excess, and there's nothing wrong with health-wise, probably, with eating a massive amount of turkey. It's everything else. It's the the goose fat potatoes and all of the chocolates and the sugary treats and the rich dessert that follows Christmas dinner and the stuffing and all of that sort of stuff. It's not good for you, and you probably wouldn't miss it if it wasn't tied up and bundled with so many happy memories of spending time with loved ones and stuff like that. You probably wouldn't do it, right? So, I mean, there's turkeys available all year round, but there's a reason you only eat it one day a year. It's tied up with what it means, to do a Christmas or to do Thanksgiving. And because of that, it harms your health, and it harms your financial health as well. You don't need to spend the money on it. You can continue to live the way that you lived in August, in December. There's really no reason for you to spend, twice your monthly salary just to try and, remember happier times in the past. It's bizarre. You shouldn't do it. So I won't be doing it, and I will be an enormous Scrooge and Grinch character for the next few months, and I choose to live that way, and I prefer it. So you should do it too. If you're not, if you want to, and it really is important to you, go nuts. But if you feel like you have to, just fuck it off. You don't need it. So there's all of that. And all the, I don't drink, but if you do, there's obviously a massive amount of alcohol consumption. That's just empty calories. You stop going to the gym as well, because the nights are cold and dark and the mornings are dark and everything's cold, when actually winter really is the best time to be putting the work in the gym, because one, it's a great way to keep warm, and two, everyone else has given up. And so you being there and putting the hours in is going to reap rewards. So when everyone comes back fat and sad in, March, you will just be there incredibly jacked and, healthy. So, winter's that season. Also, and I don't think these 2 points are mutually exclusive, December, January is a mental health crisis point for so many people. And it's because we either tried and failed to, achieve the expectations of a holiday period, and everyone else is supposed to be really happy. Everyone is subjected to wholesome family messaging, and if that's not your situation, then you just feel terrible because of it. Or there is, residual guilt that you couldn't adequately spend enough money on people, or that you had to work because you had to raise money for the Christmas period, and because of that you missed family time and stuff like that. Or it's the quiet, dark hours of the year when there's just more time to reflect. So it's a mental health crisis point. And again, it does not need to be that. So we need to continue doing the things that keep us healthy and make us happy. So continue those really good behaviours of eating well, looking after your body, looking after your mind, getting into the gym, lifting those weights, feeling really good, getting those good brain chemicals going. But also you need to look out for each other, because this is exactly the time when some of your friends are going to go off the rails. And you need to be the good friend who is there to pull them out of the shit and get them back on track and make the world feel a bit less cold and alone for the winter season. So there's that. So you first have to guard your own mental health, but also you should be there for other people in your life who will also be experiencing those mental health crises over this period. Take them to the gym. Get them in the gym with you. Do supersets and, get each other fired up for getting healthy, and make plans for the future and all of those things that are missing generally when the year is winding down and coming to an end and everyone's going into their small family enclaves, and there are some people left out in the cold. So make sure that we're not leaving people out in the cold, and bring them in, work out with them, talk to them, make sure that they're a part of something. And then we'll all ride into 2020, into spring next year, the big 2020, with enormous muscles, feeling very fucking healthy, eating really good, sleeping really good. Everyone's having, better performance in the things that matter to them, whether that's sports or music. Everyone's having better sex. Everyone's, feeling like they can face the day every day. And we can do that, and we will do that, if we look out for each other. And that's my final message for this week. We have to be aware that as the year is closing down, that we do not close down. Until next time, stay strong and stay heavy. When summer lies down, her chest heavy, breast heaving, sickly and soured by the chill of the evening. Her children once screamed, now withered and weaker. Enter young town, our entropic reaper. The fire of the day came the war of decay in the twilight of the year. Winter is here.
So